what's it been, 2 weeks since the cat interview, and we're still talking about it. I've never seen anything last this long. Here's a couple things that I've noticed since that interview. There's a couple things. One, it seems like every time my name comes up in an interview, the interviewer never keeps the conversation going. And it's weird. Like, so when Cat brought me up to Shannon Sharp, Shannon just looked at him. And then the conversation didn't, like, expand. Like, why would you say that about Gary or anything like this? Shannon literally looked at him and went, and just kept it moving. I was like, dang, man, would you expand? Why I haven't crossed over, Shannon? And then about 6-7 years ago, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and the club owner said, hey, Judd Apatow's here. He's getting ready for Bonnaroo. He wants to do a guest set before you go up. I said, yeah, of course. I had never met Judd Apatow. He comes to the show. We're at Zany's. We're at a club. He's going to do Bonnaroo in front of 1,000. He just want to, like, prep for his set. He went up, did like 15 minutes, did fine, was good. And then I went up, and I was in the pocket that night, man. And granted, a lot of it had to do because I knew Judd Apatow was watching. His manager, Jimmy Miller, was watching. So I wasn't going up there to mess around. I was going up there like this was my special. And so I go up, did my thing, and afterwards, Judd was like, we were talking afterwards, and it was good. And then he goes on Joe Rogan's podcast about 6 months later, and he tells Joe Rogan, he goes, hey, you ever heard of Gary Owen? And Joe Rogan goes, that's the white guy that does the black stuff, right? And he goes, yeah. He goes, so I go there. I go to Nashville. He goes, I'm getting ready for my set at Bonnaroo, and I went up, and it was good. It was fine, nothing special. He goes, then he goes up, and he goes, I've never heard louder laughs in a comedy club. I've never heard louder laughs. He said he has sustained 20 minutes where he was killing the audience. And then he had to stop because somebody would have died. He said he toned it down. He goes, and then I went in the back, and I goes, I want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly. And he goes, I'm really listening to his material. And I was like, dang, his material's awesome. He goes, and he goes, I've never heard louder laughs. He goes, and Judd Apatow goes, I don't know if I'm in the same business as this guy. Is this what we're doing?
Have you ever seen Gary Owen?
Yes.
I was down at doing a set. I was playing Bonnaroo, and I wanted to go on the night before to warm up, and I went to Zany's in Nashville, and he's there, and I hadn't seen him before, and I did a set, and it was okay. It wasn't very good. It was just fine. And then he gets on. I've never heard louder laughs. I've never heard louder laughs. Me and my manager, Jimmy Miller, sat in the back of the room, and we were like, what is happening? And then we start really paying attention, going, how funny is this guy? Like listening to the material. Like, is this good material, or is he pandering, or what is it? And then we're like, wait a second. His material's incredible. Like, he is awesome. And it was the biggest laughs I've ever heard. He had a sustained, like, killing the crowd, where the place is just rocking and moving up and down.
He's a white guy that does a lot of black shows, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he went a full 20, 25 minutes at 10 before he slowed it down, and had to slow it down or he was going to kill these people. And I swear, I thought, I don't know if I'm in the same business as this guy. Like, is this what we're supposed to do?
Well, when you jumped back into it, you thought that 3 years ago you were just going to have some fun.
And then Joe Rogan just went another direction with the conversation. So I just went, so Judd Apatow went up there and just said, the funniest guy I've ever seen at a comedy club was Gary Owen. The loudest laugh I've ever heard was Gary Owen. And the conversation just never went anywhere. It just, it was gone with 30 seconds. Cat Williams, if what I'm saying isn't true, how come Gary Owen hasn't crossed over, and he's been doing stand-up for 25 years, and he's white?
Why do you think Gary Owen can't cross over and he already white and been in comedy for 25 years? If what I say ain't the case. It's a cabal. It's a consortium. They rock with who they rock with, and they don't with who they don't. But I'm not scared of being the competition any more than you were when you lined up across from a superior team. Yeah, on paper, they're a better team.
Right.
They have all the assets and resources, and we don't. But let us get on the line, boy. and see if that factors in. I guarantee you it won't. Wow.
Silence. Just like, why does this happen? And then my name came up in every time your name comes up in a podcast, people are going to send it to you. So then my name came up in another podcast. Theo Vaughn was on Shane Gillis and somebody else's podcast, and they were talking about all the people that got it in the Cat interview. And they said, you know who didn't get it? Gary Owen. Yeah, he didn't talk bad about Gary. And they just moved on.
You know who else got a good response out of that? Gary Owen. Gary Owens, he got real one cred now. So he was the only. He kind of got big up during
So
the whole
did the
thing.
fucking blue collar comedy tour.
Did they did the blue
They
collar
got big
comedy
up that whole time. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah. Cat was like, those are the guys I like.
That's enemy and my
yeah.
enemy though too.
Yeah, true.
Because they were enemies of like
Oh, the
Steve
Kings.
Harvey squad. Yeah, the Kings. Kings and blue collar were serious
Yeah.
enemies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was wild, dude. I mean,
To another subject now. What the hell? Why does anybody expand on this when people bring me up? It's the oddest thing. And what I realize is like there is such a huge divide between black and white comedians and how they follow each other. That's what I've learned in the last 2 weeks. One thing I've learned is Cat is polarizing. So what he says, that transcends. But some of the most iconic things that have happened in black comedy, white comedians have no idea. I kind of knew it when I went on Theo Vaughn's podcast about 5-6 years ago, and he asked me, have I ever met Cat Williams?
have you ever worked with Cat Williams or met him?
Yeah. Every black comic I know, trust.
Right.
I've worked with every one of them.
Wow.
And I just was like, what? And I was like, one, I've done a movie with them. Two, how do you not know I know that guy? Or any, I told Theo, I go, I know every black comedian. So any black comedian, I know him that does the urban scene at all. I wouldn't say I don't know. I know Gerard Carmichael, but I don't know him, you know? I don't think I've ever met him. So it's just, it's such a huge divide because a couple things. One thing that got me too was like when Kat said Joe Rogan he's pumped 6 comedians and none of them are funny. None of those 6 ever addressed it. I want to know who the 6 are. I think we have an idea who they are, but I'm not going to throw into the bus until I know. Because there's been a lot of comedians on Joe's podcast. So I never saw the people that normally go on Joe's podcast really address who the 6 are. They always acted like they were naive to it. So and this isn't throwing people on the bus. I like these guys. You got Brennan Schaub, Bert Kreischer, Tom Segura, Andrew Schultz, Ari Shaffir. I'm trying to think. Theo Vaughn. I'm trying to think. There's got to be others, but none of those guys ever addressed like who were the 6. Was he talking about me, and why was he talking about me? It was almost like they didn't want the smoke from Cat. So, and I could be wrong, but I watched every podcast I could about the interview, and nobody brought it up. Like, what's he talking? I think Brendan did a little bit. He goes, "Oh, he's not talking about me. I didn't go on Joe's to be a comedian. I go on there as a UFC analyst." And I was thinking, I think you went on there as a comedian myself. So yeah, I found that interesting. But this is why I know there's such a divide in white and black comedy. So Joe Rogan, before Cat's interview, he had somebody on there talking about, you ever seen the Cat interview where he went off on a radio host and Joe was like, no. And the Cat and Wanda Smith back and forth is iconic. And the fact that I think black comics are very aware of what goes on in mainstream comedy. They almost have to be. And I think white comics, sometimes they are just clueless as to what goes on in black comedy and who's doing what. And the fact that Joe Rogan had never heard of the Cat Smith and Cat Williams and Wanda Smith interaction in the radio show, I went, oh my God. How do you not know that? It's almost like you don't know the story behind Bernie Mac saying, I ain't scared of you motherfuckers. That whole story from Def Jam. if you've never heard that story. There's just so many iconic, it's almost like iconic moments in black comedy that the mainstream comics have no clue. Just the fact that Theo Vaughn said, if I've ever met Cat Williams, I went, what?